We have one more story to cover this evening before we do. Now, I want everyone to understand, as I keep pointing out, why I talk about Fuentes. It's very obvious. And that's why I mentioned before about certain people on the libertarian right that are following Candace and Tucker, who we cover. But then we talk about Fuentes. And Fuentes has decided that he's going the full Monty and kind of not hiding the fact that he's really on board with Israel, because to me, this is all about money and power, and he's got a lot of aspirations for himself. Remember when he was on Patrick Bet-David's podcast? He asked him, hey, you planning on running for president one day? And apparently, yeah, he is thinking about doing that. Or governor, something along those lines. How is he going to do that? He's got to make money. He's got to make a lot of money. And so here's who he decided to attack.
Relatable little experience.
Ian and Tucker are collaborating again on the Epstein release. You know it's going to lose sight of the truth and the crimes and take the bait for views, insinuating everything without saying anything. If they were serious about the truth, they'd have on Whitney Webb. But those two have weird ties to Teal and will focus on the distractions.
I don't even trust Whitney Webb. I don't like her. You know, everybody worships Whitney Webb and the ground that she walks on. I don't like her. I'll be honest. I don't think she's that good. I watch her show. First of all, her show is boring. Okay, boring city. These people are like, I don't know, get a fucking good camera, you know? Like,
isn't he something? Isn't he such a swell guy? Doesn't he really have his shit together? Let me tell you something about Whitney Webb. Of all the people that have identified the Epstein case way before these files even had a chance to see the light of day, do you know who was pursuing this story? Whitney Webb. Whitney Webb wrote the blueprint. She wrote the blueprint. It's called One Nation Under Blackmail. And she wrote two versions of it. In fact, in totality, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the two books combined between the first book and the second book is somewhere between 1,200 and 1,500 pages. And it's basically about Jeffrey Epstein. This is a person who devoted years of her life to bring these stories to light. And he's bashing her. Of all the people that you could shit on, you shit on Whitney Webb. That's who you pick. Whitney Webb has never picked a fight with anybody in politics, ever, except for the powerful elite. As far as anybody who has a show, who is a commentator, she doesn't go after anybody. Her initials are literally Wonder Woman. That's pretty cool. Douche Canoe has more to say.
I'm watching their podcast and she's wearing like a zip up hoodie, sitting cross-legged on her couch with her fucking boyfriend with, like, I don't know, red wine in a coffee cup. Like, I don't know, be professional. Like, can't you build a nice bookshelf like Emily Jashinsky? I know you're like a Spurg and everything. I know you're like a crunchy autistic horse girl or whatever, but can't you build a nice bookshelf for your Zoom background like Emily Jashinsky and Crystal Ball?
I don't understand what horsey woman he's referring to. If he's referring to her physical appearance, which again is just pathetic. She's a nice, homely looking girl. So what the problem here is, I don't know. But as has always been the case, Fuentes has a propensity to hate on women. And great catch, Jen. Coming from the dude with a jungle for a background, I am not going to play that ad or that yeah, you mean the ridiculous ad, bigoted ad that Trump threw out there the other day, and now Fuentes is going right along with it. Listen, there is a ridiculous okay. You really have to wonder what this pursuit is, or to what end. So anyone, again, who is a groyper, who thinks that Nick is a swell guy and he's just doing God's work, like we should be a Christian nation, let me assure you, if he's not a Fed, then he's a fool and he's a fraud. So it's one of the three Fs. Maybe it's all three. But to go after Whitney Webb like this, the only way somebody would go after Whitney Webb, the author of the Epstein files, is somebody who's getting marching orders from Israel. There's no other way. No other possible way that this is the reason other than that. Because there's no way Whitney Webb would ever acknowledge his existence. Unless...
What the fuck? She's sitting there with her Logitech webcam with her zip-up hoodie pulled up over her with a coffee mug full of red wine, and her boyfriend's in his pajamas. They're cuddling next to each other on the couch, and the show fucking sucks. It's just boring. It's just like Yapperville City. And most of it is highly speculative, honestly. A lot of what they say, I'm like, all right, can we get to the fucking point already? I also, she don't follow me back on Twitter. So what is that? What's your fucking problem?
So there it is. She doesn't follow him on Twitter. And isn't that the end-all be-all of existence in a world where you do not have any interpersonal communication skills outside of what you do in front of a camera 24/7? There's a lot more to life than whether or not somebody follows you on social media. You know, Nick, I know you have a very big ego, but let's be clear. If you really wanted to get in touch with Whitney Webb, there's a thing called tagging somebody, putting their @ sign and saying, hey, Whitney, I'd like to have a conversation with you on social media. I'd like to have you on my podcast. Let's talk. No, he can't do that because, again, he doesn't know how to communicate. Why there are so many people that feel that his pathway is the right pathway, I don't understand. However, I also understand why a lot of people are hurt and why they are drawn to somebody like him. Let me assure you, he is not leading you to prosperity. He is not leading you to prominence. He's not leading you to salvation. And no, this is not a Christian nation. We will never be a theocracy because we believe in the separation of church and state. We believe in the Constitution. You don't believe in that? Get the fuck out of this country. Because if there's one thing we should universally agree on, it is that. And when he talks like a heretic, like he does, that's a problem. But now he wants to go after Whitney Webb. He couldn't make himself look like an op more if he tried.
And, you know, she complains, oh, no one invites me on big shows. People invite her, and then she's like, oh, I have like bad internet and I like forgot to reply. Okay, so that's my beef with her. But yeah, I mean, Ian Carroll is just a flat out idiot. Looks like a total freak. Him and Tucker is just like Tweedledee and Tweedledum. It's Dumb and Dumber. Doesn't get much worse than that. You know, you got one guy talking about, I was remote viewing aliens with the CIA psychics, and then I woke up and I was covered in scratch marks, and I kicked the 6 dogs out of my bed and to investigate if there was any ectoplasm on the door. And then you got Ian Carroll. I don't know, man. Just stick to delivering the pizzas. 30 minutes or less. Let's try and focus on that.
Sent $25.
For those who don't know, Ian Carroll, who is a handsome guy and a strong, buff guy. Ian Carroll's about 6'5". He's a big guy. Nick Fuentes is maybe 5'7". He's a short guy, and he's not very buff. So the hatred that he has towards Ian Carroll, and then he just had to throw Tucker's name in there. Didn't Tucker have you on his podcast? I mean, talk about pot calling the kettle black. Here's a situation where somebody did you a favor. Somebody brought you into their channel, gave you a platform to millions of people, and you talk about him in such a negative way. He doesn't talk about you, ever. But he talks about Israel in a not so good way. And so you get your marching orders. You get your marching orders, you say what you have to say, and all in what? For a paycheck? For power and prominence? There could be no other logical explanation. But this is who Fuentes is. And I want to say this to anybody out there who, again, is a groyper and thinks he's a swell dude. I am going to continue to show you why he is a fraud and why, if you continue to pursue supporting his cause, all roads are going to lead right to Israel like they do with so many other people. He could not make this more obvious. And the way that he, in a very jealous way, first of all, he has a problem with women. That's obvious. And is he gay? Maybe. Who gives a shit? And the fact that he's hating on Ian Carroll, why would he do that? Total jealousy. That's all it is. End of discussion. So if you're going to pursue this end in terms of what Fuentes is actually fighting for, he's fighting because he's at a level where the only thing that matters to him is his future and what he intends to do in politics. With a lot of money and a lot of power, he is still riding on the notion that Israel is worth pursuing. Now, every once in a while, he'll throw in a little carrot to suggest that he's not fully on board with Israel, that they're bad people. Then he'll turn around and he'll do this. A groyper, the best way I can describe it is just somebody who's fiercely loyal to the efforts of what Nick Fuentes and his ideologies pursue. They claim to be America first, but really, they're just using it as a catchphrase. It's all about whatever pursuing ends of somebody like Nick Fuentes is all about. He's an exceptional orator. I'm not going to take that away from him. He's obviously very controversial, but he gets a lot of views in the millions. People think he's a swell dude. And for a lot of unhappy, desperate, unsuccessful, and unhappy people, and how could you not be in this system? There's a lot of people who gravitate to him. There's a lot of people who think that he's speaking for me and my pain. That's what they hear when they listen to Nick. They can't get a date. They're not in good shape. They're unhealthy. They're unhappy. All of these elements come together in one. And they think Nick's the answer. Nick is not the answer.